Hey there, Mike Robbins here on Thursday afternoon, almost 2 o'clock Pacific time, coming to you live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, wherever you're watching this. If you're joining live, thanks for joining. Would love for you to pop your name, your whatever's going on in the comments in the chat. Just say hello. If you're watching the video of this after the fact, feel free to do the same. Because I often look back at the comments. So I want to have some real talk here. I don't really use that phrase real talk, but it just sort of popped into my head today. I was actually thinking of calling this big talk because I've always, look, I'm an extrovert. I love connecting with people. I love chatting and schmoozing and connecting, and can definitely have conversations on multiple levels with people about lots of different things. I've never been a fan of small talk though. And again, I can chat about the weather, about sports, or about politics, or about whatever's going on, and I'm definitely interested in and willing to engage with people, and been missing that a lot over COVID. I was actually at our daughter Samantha's volleyball game yesterday, and we've got into the yellow tier here in Marin County where we live in the Bay Area, and it just, like, we still had masks on, but I just noticed, being vaccinated and being around, like, I felt really comfortable just being next to people and talking to people, and it was fun to just sort of catch up and chat with a family that was next to me. But small talk has always bored me, and I just feel like right now, especially, I just did a virtual program for one of our clients this morning, and it was a workshop, and we did some exercises, and we were having this conversation around authenticity and lowering the waterline on the iceberg. And it was interesting because some of the people were commenting on it being a little awkward or a little uncomfortable or hard to do on Zoom, but other people were saying, oh, it's so refreshing to have real, genuine human interaction and connection and talk about real things. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Thanks for joining on LinkedIn. And I've always been someone from the time I was really little. I remember being in school, even in elementary school, and especially junior high and high school, and just like listening to the conversations in class or from the teachers or from my friends. And I didn't mean this to be as sort of self-righteous or critical as it sounds, but I'm just like, why is there so much bullshit? Like, why are we not really talking about what's going on? Like, I'm over here feeling stressed out and insecure and worried about my family. I was, raised by a single mom, and money was always tight, and she was often struggling. And my dad had bipolar disorder, which I didn't even totally understand what the heck that was. I was talking about this last week when I was talking about mental health, but I knew there was something, he wasn't well, and that was weird, and it was kind of shrouded in shame. And I was going through puberty and awkward, and like I wanted to, connect with the girls in my class or in my school, and I didn't really know how to do that, but I didn't have a dad to ask or an older brother. And I wanted to go to college but wasn't sure where that was going to go. And I was really into sports, and even though I was good at it, I dealt with a lot of insecurity and just normal human stuff, but nobody was talking about it. So like, I thought there was something wrong with me. And throughout my life, as my work has evolved over the years to really focus a lot on authenticity, I realized that some of that is very self-serving, because I just like when people tell the truth. I like when we're talking about the real stuff and not the bullshit and not the schmoozy, superficial, how's the weather, how was the game, what happened. Again, some of that is just, there is life and like how the weather and the traffic was. And, and even during COVID, it's like we're at home and we're working from home. But like, I just get really bored really easily with just talking about things on a superficial level. And maybe some of it's right now, I'm going through a really hard time. I think a lot of us are. I've been struggling. We've been dealing with some intense stuff in our family and in life. And it's been sobering and challenging, but also a good reminder that, life can be hard sometimes. Life can be painful and confusing and tricky, as it has been for a lot of us, especially at times, if not the entire time over the last 15 months. And I don't think we do ourselves a service by lying about it. Now, look, that doesn't mean we have to get on social media and Hey, Marcus, good to see you. I hope things are good in Trinidad. Thanks for joining on Facebook. It doesn't mean we have to get on social media and like share all of our, deep, dark secrets or our dirty laundry. We don't have to. Um, but, Mike asking what things can we say to go deeper in a conversation? I think, Mike, it's about just going there. I mean, asking for some permission. Hey, can we have some real talk? Hey, can I share with you what's going on? I got on a podcast interview a couple weeks ago and was interviewing my friend Scott Shute, who had a great book that just came out called The Full Body Yes. And we got on and we were just connecting on Zoom before I hit record. And he's like, how are you? And I said, truth? Like, do you want to really know? And he said, yeah. And then I shared a little bit about what was going on and some of what I was struggling with. And it was, Scott and I don't know each other that well. He's a great guy. I feel safe enough with him that I could be real. But we just had this beautiful conversation, like human to human, father to father. And he shared some really deep, beautiful wisdom and shared some stuff that was going on in his world. And it just was like a reminder, as is often the case, that everyone's dealing with stuff, especially these days. And if we have the courage, Mike, to your question, to lower the waterline on our iceberg and really tell the truth about our real experience. Again, we don't have to share all of our deep, dark secrets with every single person we interact with. We could, it's up to us, but we can show up authentically, vulnerably, and really talk about how we actually feel and what's really going on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world, violence and COVID and racism. There's a lot of stuff happening in our country, in our communities, related to vaccines and COVID, related to what's happening politically and socially. There's a lot going on in our organizations, in our teams, in our families. I mean, one of the things, I grew up in a family where, look, there was a lot of challenge, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of divorce and mental illness and addiction and other things, but like a lot of families, we had our stuff going on. But one of the things that would drive me crazy is when people wouldn't really talk about what was really going on. And again, look, there are times when we have to be mindful and sensitive. We have to honor people's confidentiality. We have to be aware of like age appropriate conversations if we have children or there's other generations. But I just feel like we spend and waste so much time trying to keep it all together, trying to make it all look good and sound good, that telling the truth is just incredibly liberating. I've been listening to a fantastic new podcast called We Can Do Hard Things that's hosted by my friends Glennon and Amanda Doyle. Glennon is a mega best-selling author. Of her most recent book is called Untamed, came out last year, was one of the best-selling books in the country. She has another great book called Love Warrior and another great book called Carry On Warrior. And my wife, Michelle, and I connected with Glennon 7-8 years ago after Michelle started reading her blog, Momastery. That's just she's such a truth teller. She's such a, just tells the truth about her experience, about her life, about her struggles, about parenthood and marriage and addiction and other things, that it's just so refreshing. And, one of her mantras through her work, and specifically her most recent book, Untamed, although she's been talking about it for years, is that life can be hard, but that's okay because we can do hard things. And the whole premise of this podcast, they have different themes each week, but then it's like Glennon and her sister Amanda, who are super close, bring something hard that they're dealing with that they share and then talk through it. And then there's a theme, and then they take some questions, some calls, some, emails from people about the topic related to hard things. And one of the things that Glennon talks about, and someone who read her book had reached out to her and shared that during COVID, she and her friends started doing hard things walks, where they would go and do a socially distant walk. It was one of the ways we've been able to connect with each other a little bit through COVID. And then everybody would bring a hard thing and they would go on this walk. And then each person, I think it was a group of women, each of the women would share their hard thing and just get some support. And when I heard her talk about that, I thought, what a beautiful thing. And I've been fortunate enough to be in a men's group for the last 10 years. And that's pretty much what we do. we share wins and successes and good stuff too, but it's, hey, this is my hard thing that I'm dealing with right now. And then we bring it to the group and get some support. And Mike, to your point, I appreciate your comment that people seem more on edge and stressed out than ever. I'm definitely seeing that. I think one of the weird things is, here we are, especially here in the US, where we're so privileged and blessed that we have access to vaccines, and, COVID is changing and shifting and things are opening up more. That's not the case in places like India and Brazil and many other countries in the world. So we need to be mindful of that. But as we're moving through things and there's more of a light at the end of the tunnel, as everyone keeps talking about, and it feels like we're going to be going back to work and back to, sporting events and concerts and gatherings and things. It's great. I'm super excited. But I think what it's doing, and coming out of a lot of the chaos of last year politically and socially, not that all of those things are resolved by any stretch, but the acute nature of the intensity and chaos of some of what we were dealing with, and COVID, and the severity of the virus and the case numbers and the death toll and all of that. I mean, it's still way, way, way more than any of us want it to be, but so much down. I think part of, Mike, what's happening is, at least I know this is happening for me, and I think a lot of us, I think we're starting to wake up to how traumatizing this whole experience has been and continues to be. And look, I mean, I say that as someone who's incredibly blessed and privileged, who hasn't gotten COVID and now vaccinated, so I'm not assuming that I will get it. Hasn't had people close to me get sick or die, hasn't lost my job or been super significantly financially impacted, although our business has definitely taken a hit through the last 15 months. Michelle, our girls were healthy, we're safe, we're at home. We live, I mean, relatively speaking, life has been fine for us on most levels. We're definitely dealing with some intensity and some challenge in recent weeks and months, but I say all that, and I personally feel incredibly traumatized by all that's happened. I can only imagine people who've been, frontline workers, and people who've lost people in their lives or gotten sick or lost their jobs or been even much closer to some of the intensity of this whole experience. So I think there is a level of, wow, it's getting better. Wow, we're out of the worst of it and coming out the other side of it to some degree. Again, not necessarily the case if you live in India or you're, in Israel, where there's violence, and other places, so many places in the world. But I think it's allowing us, Mike, a little bit of space to wake up and go, oh my gosh, this has been really hard, really scary, really painful, really challenging. And again, back to the theme of this conversation, can we have some real talk about how we're actually doing? Can we talk about how we're feeling? Can we talk about our mental health? Can we talk about racism? Can we talk about whatever? The fears that we have about reintegrating, the guilt or the shame that we might feel for some of the privilege we may have, the difficulty in, dealing with putting on weight during COVID, as I have and many people have. The desire to want to get back to life, but the fear of what it's going to be like, what it's going to feel like. I don't know, but just the real stuff, the struggles that are actually going on. There's so many people I know right now who either them or their kids, especially their kids or others, are really struggling with mental health challenges, medication, hospitalizations, and like really intense stuff. I think we're going to be seeing more of that in the coming days, weeks, months as we move through this. So here's a couple of thoughts that I have for you, a couple of suggestions for what we can do. First and foremost, do we have people close enough in our lives that we live with, that we work with, that we're friends with, that we're connected to, that we can really drop the waterline on our iceberg and get real? If you really knew me in this moment, as the exercise I often do with teams and with groups is, what would you know? Share what's really going on, share how we're really feeling, share what we're really dealing with, the hard things, and even maybe some of the joy as well. The first book I wrote is called Focus on the Good Stuff. So I do consider myself an optimist, but we got to be real. The second thing that we can do is check in with people, really check in, like, how are people really doing? Not the bullshit, not the superficial stuff, not the like, hey, how's the kids? How's the family? But really, like, how are you? And the quality of that question and that check-in, even if it's a text message, even if it's an email, but especially if it's live on the phone or on FaceTime or on Zoom or whatever, but like, how are you really doing? How's your heart? How are you feeling? And then the third thing, and I mean, I say this a lot, but it's reach out for help. Most of us love to help. Very few of us are comfortable asking for help, but we all need support, especially these days in different ways. And asking for support is not weak. Asking for support is not a burden to others, as long as they know they don't have to. I mean, look, most of us are running on fumes these days. So yeah, let's be mindful of what other people are dealing with and carrying. But when you ask for help, it liberates you. It models it for other people, gives people permission to do it. And you might actually get some help. And you know what you also do? You give other people the permission to do something that most people love to do, which is what? Help. And remind yourself and others that, you know what, I'm not a robot. I'm not superhuman. I'm real. I'm vulnerable. I don't have it all together. I've never been through a 15-month-long global pandemic, and I don't really know exactly how to do this or what comes next. And I think that's true for all of us. So hang in there, be kind to yourself and others, be real with yourself and others, and be willing to have real, honest, open, authentic, vulnerable conversations with the people around you. I think it's what we all want. It's what we all need. It reminds us that we're in this thing together and we really belong to each other. So thanks for watching. Again, feel free to leave a note or a comment. If you're watching the video of this after the fact, I'll try to jump on next week or the week after to do another live. But I'm grateful to be connected to you in whatever way we're connected. And I wish you the very best.